Hello and welcome. It's so nice to see so many of you already on in the comments. Just wanted to say thank you for being here. I am very excited about our guest today on our Farm and Ranch Friday. My name is Lindsey Holland. I am a Texas farm and ranch broker. I've been in this business since 2015. But those of you who know me and my little Jack Russells, I've been playing in the mud since I grew up in the swamps of South Florida. We would love to share all this information with you today about farm and ranch real estate and land ownership. Give us a moment and just click on subscribe. We'd hate for you guys to miss this. We like to do these at least maybe once, every Friday if we can, depending on guests. I'm actually looking at the chat. Sorry, I got distracted. Hi, Tanya. Hi, Bennett. We have some agents from all over the state of Texas joining us today. I'm going to introduce you to our amazing guest. This is David Light. He is the COO of LANDBROKER CoOp, and more importantly, LANDBROKER MLS, which is an amazing tool. And LANDBROKER CoOp is an amazing organization of land brokers from now around the world that just service this cool part of real estate. Land ownership is like the dream. I don't know if you've actually spent a lot of time in Texas, David, but I'm sure you've seen, the dream in Texas is to own a ranch, or they know somebody that wants to own a ranch. Owning a Texas ranch is the sticker around here. So really excited to bring you David today. I just wanted to give you a chance, to introduce yourself. I have David's bio and all of his accolades in the description, as well as his contact information after this call. If y'all want to reach out, whether you're landowners or farm and ranch brokers wanting to know more about what he does, that information is there for you. So please feel free to take a look. David, you've been in this business for 22 years. How did you get started? What inspired you to do that?
Well, I didn't come in the usual way. I'm actually from England originally, and I came to the States in 1991, and 2002 I got a job at Farm and Ranch magazine, which I still hold that magazine close to my heart because it really got me started in the industry. And we at one point we had about 6 different titles, and that was pre-internet. I mean, I remember the first day we launched the Farm and Ranch website, and I thought, it'll never be a thing, right? So I was kind of a print guy for a long time, and then I went on and started my own publication, Open Fences magazine, and that has now become the CoOp. We invited a lot of sort of prominent land brokers around the country to get involved, and created a cooperative, and it's a true cooperative. It's not just by name. The profits at the end of the year, we write checks back to the members. It's been quite a ride. The last sort of 6 years doing that has really been an eye-opener. I thought I'd seen every corner of the industry, but it turns out I hadn't. And we have a lot of fun over there. We're trying to do important work and create something that is both good for the consumer. Without the consumer, we're all pretty quiet. We're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs, right? So it's got to work for them, but also something that brings value to the brokerage community and explains the value of the land brokerage community in transactions, as opposed to just real estate transactions as a whole.
So being in the media role, especially over a few generations, a few decades, what have you seen? What's the most dramatic change that you've seen so far?
Well, the internet, by far. I mean,
you're around for that.
23 years in the industry, I was around for that. As I say, there were no websites. I remember, as that changed, obviously almost overnight. And in the magazine business, or in the real estate business, there was a time in the state of Texas particularly, where the MLS was Texas Farm and Ranch magazine. and people would show up to listings holding that publication. That was how they learned about what was on the market, because
it was in print. It wasn't a go-to click of the
print.
button.
It was all print back then. And then now other publications are into the market. And then obviously the space for websites is pretty busy these days. And surprisingly, I always think the land market is sort of the dusty little corner of the real estate industry, right? Now, it might be dusty, but it is extremely productive. A lot of acres transact, whether it be farm ground in Iowa or big ranch in South Texas, hunting ranch in South Texas, or a place in Montana. You know, this stuff is happening all the time, and it requires a certain level of expertise. It's not for everybody. So I think one of the big changes was, yes, the internet opened up a lot of things, but it also maybe gave people a false feeling of, oh, well, this is just real estate. Whereas I think any land broker that's on this or going to watch this later will sit there and shake their head and think to themselves, no, it's not, because there's a lot of nuance here.
Absolutely. You know, we don't just deal with the dirt, we deal with the multiple improvements. We obviously deal with the agricultural or wildlife side of that. You know, we have our own, people don't realize, at least I deal with a lot of residential and then commercial agents, and they don't realize we have our own title companies. We have our own attorneys. We have our own documentation. We have our own lenders. It's a different product in the world of real estate. And you have to have additional training on top of your standard real estate training, residential training. Because let's face it, I tell my agents, I was like, a quarter of the farm and ranch contract is a residential contract. So you need to know the baseline, because there are residences on ranches. There's some similarities there, or in addition to. But, you know, just like if you're selling a skyscraper, you know, you probably cut your teeth on selling some homes and then got a mentor, got with a massive team, had the additional training to be certified, qualified, or have that school of hard knocks education to understand. And also, too, being in the business. A lot of our farm and ranch brokers and agents own land themselves. Their family owns land. They run a ranch, they run a farm, they run an agricultural business. You know, ag businesses like, you know, feed stores are really popular here in the Hill Country. There's families that have been, you know, doing the feed business, whether it be cattle or wildlife, for a very long time. So I'm really glad that you honed in on that, because this podcast is for educational purposes. It's not just for the strict farm and ranch broker. It's agents that want to get into the farm and ranch business, landowners that are currently thinking about buying or selling. And then we have, at least in my mind, and I'd love your opinion on this, I feel like because of COVID and what we went through, a lot more people want a bigger yard. They want space from their neighbor. They want a different county, because when, you know, we had all those rules and regulations and shutdowns, people that had the rural lifestyle, it wasn't as locked down, stay in your house. Like, if you have a yard, you have 100 acres, you could get out, you could get fresh air, the kids could run around. And we saw an influx of first-time landowners. So as someone that does, in my mind, I feel like you're the guy that sees all of it, all the farm and ranch markets, every state and internationally. How did you see that trend before lockdown and now? What did you see in those different regional markets?
Well, it was there were two influences into land at that time. There was clearly COVID. People wanted more space. People wanted to bug out. They wanted to not be in a city. No one knew how long it was going to last. They needed to be able to move around. So the ones who could afford to do it bought second homes. They primarily kept their primary residence. Not all of them. There's plenty of people who just moved lock, stock, and barrel, but a lot of second home owners showed up, right? And they spent a year or two in what was their second home, and now it's become their primary home. It's sort of hard to get land out of your system. And it's amazing how many people just thought they were making a temporary move and can't imagine going back. And, you know, we're all lucky enough to be able to work from home. And, you know, as an option, not all, but many people are now. And that's certainly, we had a couple of years for companies to get used to that and to adapt to that. So where it worked. And I was in Boston recently, and it's amazing how many signs are on these buildings for rent, for rent, for rent, for rent. Places that would have been a high dollar location that there might have been a waiting list for is sitting empty because everyone's working from home still. So if you're working from home and you've got high speed, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and they came along and put in fiber optic, and I was like, really? Okay, I'll take it. Which made life easy, but. So I think the COVID thing was a big factor, and funnily, I think Yellowstone, the TV show, which I still, believe it or not, haven't seen, and have no intention of watching. It's like I saw one episode. I'm like, this is like, I'm old enough to remember Dallas. I'm like, this is just Dallas, right? But with better hats, you know. So I just couldn't get over the drama, but I get the appeal. But it did have a very positive effect on the psyche of people when it came, I think, to land. And those two things combined, you know, it's been a very busy few years. And then everything gets back to normal, and interest rates go up, and oh, there goes the industry. There goes the market. It's still strong. There's still low inventory. There's still a want and need for space. So, you know, as terrible as COVID was, I can tell you as a landowner, it was almost the most peaceful time for me. I mean, looking up, no airplanes, no, I mean, it was like so quiet. And you almost felt guilty because you're like, gosh, a lot of people don't have, I couldn't imagine being in an apartment in Manhattan or in Chicago and Miami with kids and dogs and not being able to go. It must have been very, very difficult. So I felt very fortunate. And I think anyone that experienced that left a mark. I think people would be reluctant to give that potential up again.
Yeah, that kind of was the one thing that stuck with me through the COVID buying and selling boom was before, when a party, husband and wife, wanted to buy a ranch. I normally got a lot of objections from, I'm not going to be, you know, I'm just going to shoot it straight to you. 9 times out of 10, the wife didn't want the hunting ranch and didn't want to sleep in a shack, and she probably was never going to come back. But really, she was vetoing it, saying, I want a house on the beach. I've had that scenario come up quite a bit in my career. And so the funny part was, we had moms that are like, honey, you go buy that ranch. These kids need to get out and run around and scream and just go get it right now. I don't care how far away. I don't care if it's in Junction, Texas or Timbuktu. They were the ones driving the sale. You know, just like with any sales, with anything you're selling, there's always the influencer and the decision maker. Well, let me tell you, if mama wasn't happy, nobody was happy. And it was really funny to see the tables turn, that we had more moms that wanted their kids to be outside.
Well, at the end of the day, you know, moms, certainly in my world, moms are the ones that tend to make the decisions that overall are best for the health of the family unit, right? And what was best for the health of the family unit was the ability to move around, have space, and have a childhood, right? Not have 2 years of video games, which was the only way for kids to connect. So not the only way, but it was, you know, I kept hearing, oh, I let my kids do, because it's their only option to speak to other kids. I'm like, is it? Well, maybe, but so yeah, if you had that opportunity, I think mums, that's interesting to look at it that way. But I agree, I could see that mums would be driving that bus, because at the end of the day, they're the ones dealing with it head on, more so in many situations.
Absolutely. And then we, you know, just speaking to what, we're seeing in the news and across the board, your health and having a garden and, exercising and, mostly just having good food. And I don't know if you've seen this trend of like these women homesteading and making sourdough bread. And, I can't be the only one out here. Yeah. I just in this past year to see women driving the land sale because they wanted that lifestyle, which was more in tune, at least in Texas, mind you. I'm in the hill country. People love hunting ranches to get away on the weekend from the big city. People work in Houston and Dallas, and they just want to get out and get away and drive the ATV, UTV around and do your thing. So to me, to see, 9 times out of 10, it was, the dad or the grandpa and the boys, to now, the ladies were like, we're going to have a ranch. So I thought that was kind of interesting, an interesting trend that I saw on my side, because most of our marketing is more tailored to the outdoorsmen, at least a lot of our hunting ranches here in the hill country. That masculine, like you said, that Dallas, that, Yellowstone, feel to it. It's all the boys. So it's interesting to see the trend to, women. And also too, I don't know if you've seen this, the amount of female agents, young female agents that are slinging land. I was one of the youngest female ranch brokers at one time. No, that's been blown out of the water. And I think we even see this on the commercial side, because I did have a commercial broker tell me this. He goes, the scape of our industry is changing. He goes, you don't see the old white guy selling commercial. He goes, you see more young adults, more ladies. We're seeing more ladies running ranches nowadays. In that trend, the stereotype of that, what's kind of amazed you, or, what are some trends that you saw within the actual salesmen of this business?
Well, I was just at the Realtors Land Institute National Land Conference the last few days in Louisville. And I can tell you, I've been to every one, I think, since it started. In fact, I was one of the people that started that back in San Antonio many, many years ago with a couple of other guys. I think we had 32 people at our very first National Land Conference. It wasn't a big turnout. Now it's like 500. But the dynamic in the room has shifted from guys that look like me, but with a different accent, obviously, but to a lot of female, a lot of younger people. I would say it would have been just 10 years ago, in a room of 200 land brokers, you might have 10 women. And now I would say in a room of 200 land brokers, you have about 80. And I would say that a good chunk of them are under the age of 35. And that's a big shift. Part of the reason is the older we get, sometimes when it comes to technology, the dumber we get and the lazier we get. I mean, I'm convinced. Luckily, we have great people at the CoOp, and I don't have to understand a lot of the stuff because that's not what I do, right? So, but we've got young, hungry people coming into the industry who are thriving on the technology that's available. Companies like Land ID doing all of the mapping for ranch brokers and for the public, and people. That's a really intuitive, easy thing to use. But you and I were talking about ChatGPT recently and things like that. I mean, there's some wonderful tools. Well, I might use the tool, but I'm not going to take the time to learn properly how to use it. So I'm probably using, much like my Mac, my Apple here, probably using 10% of its capabilities. And I'll never break into the next 2 or 3%, let alone the next 90%. Whereas they're not satisfied and they're getting at least 80% out of it. And we're in a technology-driven world, and even in the dusty corner that is the land industry, there's technologists all over the place. I mean, there's so many companies in this space now that are offering some great services on the technology side, making life easier for brokers and landowners. That's exciting, except if you're me and you can't keep up with that stuff. Now I have to keep asking my son, what is this? And he'll log me into something, and I'm like, all right, I'm good now. So it's almost embarrassing, but that's just the fact. I think that the younger group is coming through very, very effectively because they're not also having to come up the hard way. I mean, it wasn't long ago, and it still happens, where you'll get a ranch broker, crusty old ranch broker in Texas or Colorado or Utah writing a contract on the hood of the pickup truck on the property, right? That is not that far past.
Well, I'll tell you around here, I got a few that still do it. And I was fortunate enough to where I was trained by some of those old codgers. And I'm really glad I did, because I learned a lot of history that a traditional brokerage group that's basically residential wouldn't know. But you're right. A lot of it's digital, e-signatures. And I'm not going to lie. My joke with that is I've never had a contract I hand wrote in my pickup truck that didn't get accepted. So I always tell agents, don't shy away from it. I think there's some lucky charm there.
But there are a few, but I think it takes a certain skill set to be that person, right? And the guys and gals that came up that way, they had to learn. It wasn't convenient to be a land broker, right? It's a lot more convenient now. You still got to understand water rights, mineral rights, fence line disputes. I mean, there's so many things that a residential broker doesn't have to think about, and vice versa, and a commercial broker. It's funny, there's a very clear line between commercial and residential. If I'm buying a house, I'm going to see a residential broker. If I decide to buy an office building or strip mall or whatever it might be, I'm not calling the same broker. I'm going to call a commercial broker because I know it's a different skill set. The line between residential and land is unnecessarily fuzzy, right? And I think that's kind of a bit of a problem because people can get in trouble. The consumer can get in trouble. The agents can get in trouble. It's amazing. You don't know what you don't know. And there have been many situations where extremely competent, very, very smart residential brokers have sold something to somebody, say in Houston, and that individual says, yeah, we want to buy a ranch. Oh, I can help you with that. Why wouldn't they? It's good business. And next thing you know, they've done a ranch deal and they've enjoyed a nice commission and everything's great. And then they find out that, what's the mineral right again? Oh, shoot, we didn't talk about that. And there's a lawsuit, right?
My favorite is Anthrax. So with these hunting ranches,
oh, yeah.
and not to scare half the people on this podcast right now, anthrax occurs naturally in the agricultural world. And sure. A lot of the affordable land is in the, where we are, it's Edwards County. It's all down, around the Rock Springs city area. And, the ranchers down there, the cattle ranchers and the goat ranchers and the sheep ranchers, doesn't faze them. It's just a part of the business. It's a part of agricultural life. Well, here recently, we had a handful of influx from COVID. Okay, I can buy 100 acres for $200,000. That's a steal, at least in this area. And all of a sudden, the deer die because they have a wave of anthrax. And so now you have the buyers, suing the seller. Well, you didn't tell me about this. I never knew this. We bought this to hunt on, and now we can't hunt for another 7-8 years until the herd comes back and just the way of life in the agricultural world. And you're right. There's so many things you don't know what you don't know. Texas being so large, I joke with people. I'm like, Edwards County is like the size of Connecticut. It's like you're selling to the whole state just in one county. Like, how do you, unless you do it every day and someone's trained you and you've been down there and the dirt, even that county shifts in ecoregions. Like, I'll say you'll be on one side of the county and it's desert. The other side of the county, has a crystal clear river going through it. And, it's a totally, different aquifer. So no, I get it. And you're right. It is fuzzy because a house on acreage, especially around in Texas, a house on 100 acres can be, a farm, a ranchette. But when you roll into that what are the mineral rights? What's going on with the soil? What's going on with the water? It opens up a whole can of worms, and it's not about really the agents. It's about the buyers and sellers. And did we disclose, things that might be normal for a seller? Oh, well, this is just a part of ranching.
Well, the buyer's agent not knowing enough about the product will get the buyer's agent in a lot of trouble, right? But it's really hard to walk away from the potential of a big commission. The best thing they could do, and this goes both ways. You don't see too many people rolling up in an F-350 with, metal kennels in the back showing a condo in Houston, right? And it goes both ways. You do see a few Lexus and loafers showing up to show ranches. And it can be okay. That's going to get me in trouble, right?
No, well, I was thinking
that's okay.
This is a safe space. Don't you worry. It's a safe space. I was just thinking about now we have the Tesla truck showing up to the ranch showing.
Cybertrucks. Hey, I went in one of those the other day, and it was no joke. Let me tell you, that was no joke. So I don't think I could ever own an electric vehicle because where I live, it just wouldn't work. But that thing was a beast.
You know what? Not to go off it. You know what my joke is with that? I said, I can barely keep my phone charged. How am I going to keep the vehicle charged?
Right?
Everyone's like, it's not in my wheelhouse at all. So.
I wouldn't know where to charge it where I live. It just isn't an option. But, each to their own. That's fine. But the fact is, but there are resources available. Go get the Land 101 course. At least start with the Land 101 course. RLI puts that on. Get involved with an organization like TALB, Texas Association of Land Brokers, or TLBN, Texas Alliance of Land Brokers, TLBN, Texas Land Brokers Association. But there's lots of good resources out there. But if you're gonna play in the space, then just take a breath and understand the space a little bit to avoid a problem. And if you don't have the time because you're really busy, find someone to partner up with on a deal. Be happy with the referral and none of the liability, and not driving 2.5 hours every time your buyer wants to go back out and just check the bond one more time. Make that somebody else's problem and take the referral fee. That's smart business, because while you're messing with something you don't necessarily have a lot of experience with, the stuff you're really good at is you're missing. That makes no sense to me. So I think whether you're part of EXP, but whether you're part of EXP or it could be Compass, it could be whatever group it is, there are resources within your group of people that understand that space. I'd say keep it in the family. That's great, but probably refer it. And I have no doubt they'll refer back to you at some point.
And that's one of the reasons why we do this podcast. I chose to put my brokerage group within a brokerage, which is EXP. And I just tell people, wherever you hang your hat, you do it I do it based on my business, my LLC, and that's why I selected my brokerage group to go under EXP. But wherever you hang your hat, whether you're an independent broker or you're with a larger conglomerate, it really just boils down to, like you said, the competency and experience. And I love the time aspect, because you're correct. And I say this to all my agents and anybody that wants to refer. Time is money, and people forget what they're worth an hour. And if you're wasting time trying to reinvent the wheel and learn something that you may not even be passionate about and continue on to do in the future, think about all the deals that you missed that were in your wheelhouse. Think about the percentage of income for your business. You could be neglecting other deals, which also puts you in, can put you into a liability situation and your fiduciary responsibilities to your clients. So I love that you brought that up, because that's really something the consumer and the agents sometimes don't know. I always go back and say, what's your fiduciary responsibility to the client? Do you have the states, all states have a level of competency? Like how can you prove that you're competent? What did you do to prove that you have that experience? How many deals did you do? Things of that nature, right? Did your broker sign off on you being able to do this particular type of transaction in this geographical area? And, I think sometimes because we're commission based, we get focused on, this is exciting, let's do this deal. And we forget about, should I do this deal? Is this something, that could harm my business? Not just harm the client, but I tell people to take it back to, what is your why? What is your business? If you're selling property in Houston, Texas, and you got clients that want to drive, to over here to the hill country, is that really the best use of your time for your business and for your bottom line? And I also think it's a magical thing. I mean, how cool is it to sell a ranch? We have that side of it. We have the romance side of that industry. I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of brokers even shy away from that conversation because I can do this. I know people, I can do this. And it's like, just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. And you're right. There are a ton of educational platforms. You can probably just Google it or Chat GPT. There's a list of them out here in Texas. If you're in the Hill Country, I am an ambassador for the LANDBROKER CoOp. I'd be happy if you want to shoot me a text message or email us or call me directly. I'll be happy to send you some schedules and some forums, because that's something that we love to do. We want to share the message of our community, and we're definitely going to get into the family of LANDBROKER CoOp here shortly. But you're right. The educational factor is huge. Also, too, I tell people, if it's your passion, if you love the outdoors, diversify your real estate portfolio, diversify your real estate business. Get into farm and ranch, get into industrial, get into commercial, get into multifamily. STRs are huge. So just in the aspect of the business of real estate around the world globally, and then talking about referrals. We have a massive referral network in our team because we don't do traditional residential homes. So it is not uncommon for us to be sending out, hey, I got someone that wants to buy a home in Fredericksburg. They want to buy an STR, a short-term rental. And we've also talked about the other side of it. We have residential agents that know that we're their go-to because we're going to service their client on the side of farm and ranch, and then they're still your client. I think that's another thing agents forget. They're so worried they're going to lose their client, and it's like, listen, you do this, we do this, you do this, and our job is to just service and have a fiduciary of relationship and responsibility to the client. And I think sometimes the magic of real estate sales, does get a little fuzzy.
Yeah, I mean, and it's understandable. It's understandable, and I think part of the fault of it is on the land industry itself not doing a very good job educating the public to the difference. Right. So I think that's something that we're at the CoOp, and I know other groups are trying to do more of, is understanding what it means to work with a educated land agent or educated land broker. Understand what it means to get a loan when it comes to land transactions. Many deals fall apart at the last minute because they went with a perfectly good high street bank, a bank that's very reputable, but then they find out they're really only lending on the house and 10 acres, even though there's 1,000 acres. You need a lender that's going to understand you. I'm a huge proponent of the farm credit system. They're in every state in the country. If I'm buying land, they're also a co-op. We kind of stole that from them. Actually, they've been a successful co-op for over 100 years. We hope to be a successful co-op for over 100 years too. But you usually pay a little bit more on the interest, but you're also getting a percentage back. You get a check back every year, right? So, and it's amazing actually how many agents don't really know and utilize the farm credit system. They go as far as to say, oh no, that rate's too high, but they're not understanding the benefit of that rate being high is also you're receiving some of that back each year.
There's dividend options
The
as well.
dividends, yeah. I mean, it's but they understand land. Most of them grew up on land, and they understand how to structure a land loan. There's accelerated depreciation. There's all of these things that don't apply anywhere else but in the land space, especially when it comes to agricultural. And you really need to be around people that get it, understand it, and have access to further resources. I mean, you know, if somebody starts asking me about 1031s or DSTs, or I don't go there because I'll get in trouble, right? I'm not that guy, but I sure know who to send them to, you know. And there's a lot of brokers that don't understand, that they don't give their sellers that advice when they realize they got a really low basis. They've owned this, you know, and this is 2 generations or 3 generations, and they're about to get, when they sell this thing, they're going to lose a lot of money to the government that they could defer if they wanted to. You got to understand that stuff. You got to be able to give them that advice, or at least give them that option to talk to someone about how they could save 20, 40, 60% of the income from the sale. That's a kind of a big deal. You got to have places to send those folks.
And you're bringing up a part of like the competency of understanding, because we are the source of the sources. They're so, it's so multifaceted. You know, it's a 3-dimensional product. It's not just a house and land. There's all these benefits depending on what the seller did with it and the buyer wants to do with it. And like you said, this scenario of the 1031 exchange and tax, you know, deferring taxes into a different product, you know, that's a world we don't live in. However, we need to be aware of it to send them to the right source. And it's so crazy that you brought up 1031 exchange. We have done in the past on this podcast, and I'm begging him to come back on, but a 1031 attorney. And even in the industry, since I've been in it 2015, that law and those tax laws have changed so much that I'm like, I know it's important, but I'm like, I'm not the expert. I'm not that attorney, but I need to get my clients to them because they can save hundreds of thousands of dollars deferring it or transferring into whether it be, you know, I found out not just properties, you can buy leases, you can invest now. It's not just buying dirt. You can roll it into, they've opened up some other sectors. And that blew my mind, because some people say, I don't want to buy another ranch, but if I have to buy another like and kind, the definition of like and kind has changed. So you're right.
Has broadened. But then Delaware statutory trust or deferred tax settlement, those the other DST is 2 that are both DST, which is confusing to me. But you know, then you don't have to also have the clock on you. You can take as long as you want within reason to identify, and you're not buying more land. You're going into a fund that's going to write you a check every month. You're going to pay income tax on that check, but the bulk of the money is protected. And if you pass away, it can be passed down to your kids without any tax implications. And it's amazing how many people don't know about that stuff. And I know just enough to get in trouble. So that's all I'm going to say on that. But there are some.
You know what I say? Let me refer you to my partners list. We have some great experts in that.
Okay,
field.
you go check out the partners list. But this is information that if you're selling a property for somebody, you probably need to have a go-to person on those situations, because as people age out of ranches and their kids don't necessarily want to keep it, they're not coming back to the ranch. They've moved now. They're an attorney in Dallas or New York or whatever, and they're probably not moving back to the ranch. The family property is going to get sold, right? And when that happens, you probably need to be the broker listing the property that's going to give them the advice. Okay, here are 3 people to go talk to about your options. There's 3 options out there. Go to talk to them. They all say, oh, my accountant knows all about this. You'd be amazed how few accountants know anything about it, but they hate to say, oh, I don't know about that. I'll go look it up. Oh, yeah, no, you don't want to do one of those. It turns out they did.
I actually, unfortunately, had that happen to a client of mine, and it involved their CPA and 1031 exchange. And their CPA told them they would be fined, and they didn't know how much money they were going to make and where it put them in another bracket. And like, I've seen the horror stories of, some of these, we're talking about rural markets. They have had the same people doing their business, their books for so long. Those laws have changed so much. So being educated enough to present it. And I love what you also just brought up, not just 1031 exchange, but legacy land plans. And what if you buy this ranch and you want it for your grandkids, but what if that doesn't happen? How are you protecting this asset in your portfolio for your family? What would you like to set up? And that was something kind of new for me, is we actually started having partners that specialized in agricultural financial planning and legacy land planning. You're about to buy a $2 million ranch. There's going to be taxes. There's going to be wildlife, agriculture. In 50 years, if your grandson doesn't want it, how can you make this an asset for the family and not a liability? And you make the decisions for them now, because they may not have the world is going to be different then. So I love, that's one thing I think in our world, just because I think financial plans, there's so much financial, people are scared of it. They're scared of financial planning. They're scared of finances. I only pay cash for everything. There's that mom and pops out there that they don't think, listen, let's leverage the tools that are out there. Let's leverage the taxes, the investment portfolios. And that, I love that you said that, because legacy land planning is coming up more and more, because it is a part of their portfolio. And land can, especially in the hill country, we've seen, pennies on the dollar to now multi-millionaire families in one fell swoop. And they're not used to having that kind of money.
No, and they get pretty upset when they realize they could have kept a whole lot more of it.
Absolutely.
After the transaction. So.
Well, I did want to take some time here. We do have about 15 more minutes, and I wanted to talk to you about, you played a key role in the creation of the LANDBROKER CoOp. Can you tell us more about the CoOp, its mission, and the benefits to not just land brokers, but to our clients, to the general public?
So when you have a cooperative, it's in the name, right? You've got brokers working cooperatively to create a better situation for the industry. And that can only benefit the consumer, because what the consumer's seeing is more accurate. It's real information. Everybody's sort of in it together. This industry came under a lot of pressure on the marketing side. It got very expensive quite quickly on the marketing, right? And sellers have higher and higher expectations. Those expectations are become more and more expensive to meet. And there had to be an alternative. And the best possible alternative is an industry-based alternative, rather than another technologist coming along and, with stockholders, they've got to show the graph to better be heading in the right direction. It's just a different, it's a different scenario. It's more of, it's more cooperative. I mean, that's good for everybody, right? So we started it about 6 years ago. We have over 1,000 member owners. We have about 13,000 affiliate members through our affiliate organizations. We work with a bunch of farm credits that sponsor and support us. And I personally think, from a LANDBROKER standpoint, if you're not a member of the CoOp, you probably need to check it out. The access it gives you to other industry sites, it's by far the largest syndicator of listings. So when you put a listing on the LANDBROKER CoOp, it's going to about 15 other websites while you sleep. You don't have to do anything. And there are more and more being added all the time. all that's on the website. I'm not going to bore everybody with it now, but you probably should check it out. It's extremely inexpensive because it's co-op. It has its own magazine. That's inexpensive. It's very high quality.
It's very
It's
beautiful.
inexpensive. Yeah, but
I was going to tell you,
only has to cover
congratulations on that.
Thank you. It only has to cover its cost. So and you own it if you're a member of the co-op. So, that in itself, and it's a great asset for the consumer. Okay. So when a consumer does business through a co-op, they kind of come at it with a different attitude than if you were, Zillow. Now, there's nothing wrong with Zillow. I've never been on the site myself, but I understand it's very nice.
You're not looking for a 2,000-acre ranch on Zillow, right?
No, you're not going to find it. No, but there's nothing wrong with that. Those are important tools too. They're just not relevant in our space. And bigger isn't always better. Relevant is better. Quality over quantity is better. We want land curious people. We want people who either are in the land space, who want to be people who are watching your podcast, right? People who have an interest or just are curious and they're thinking about it. At some point, when I retire, I want some land outside of town, whatever it might be, but they're intentional about land. Those are people we want to have come through our system and through our network of sites. It's like over 5 million views a month now through the network. We want those people to be the people that we're putting out to our members, right? That's where the rubber meets the road. So yeah, I mean, if you're a member of the co-op, you've got inexpensive or much less expensive and really high quality medical insurance programs. Often the public don't realize that 99% of agents and brokers are self-employed. Just because you work for a company, you're not getting a salary. You're still eating what you kill, right? It's still a case of having to go out there and work the system and work hard and bring in business and satisfy clients, and you earn the commissions. So, things like medical insurance, no one's paying that for you. You're covering your family, and it's really nice to have programs that are designed for the industry, and we have that. Heck, it's everything from discounts at Cabela's to discounts in travel, and there's all sorts of back-end
Cowboy
benefits.
boots. It's one
Cowboy
of those things.
Boots, yeah, you never know.
Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about the co-op family of farm and ranch agents, it's not just an MLS and a magazine where we list our properties and do advertising. It's a family, and it has benefits for us in the industry based on what we do. Like you'd said, I think the biggest one so far, healthcare, is huge because most of us are private contractors. No matter who your broker is or if you are a broker. Oh. And so you having that group buying power and presenting that to people, it really, it was really helpful. It was nice to see it. Like I call it, it's our co-op family, and mm-hmm. The other half of it is the collaboration of like-minded agents. I got a client selling a ranch in Montana. They want to move to Texas. Being able to know that the person in this space, knows this niche market, has the education, and I can feel comfortable handing that client over. And then the other half, if you want to get into this business, it's very much still a good old boy networking market. You have to pick up the phone, introduce yourself, call these farm and ranch brokers, and that's how you learn. We're still, to me, if you really want to cut your teeth in this business, you need some very heavy hitting mentors that have seen the shift in history, not only of farm and ranch real estate, but we've had a massive shift in just this business alone across all sectors.
Sure.
So that's always been I love it because of our collaboration, and we're a family. And if you really want to learn, these people are going to shoot you straight, just like you, David. Very excited for you to dive into that. And if you have more questions, like I said, shoot David an email, shoot me an email. We'll be happy to introduce you to the LANDBROKER Co-op. Now, I don't know what I can talk about and can't talk about as far as being an ambassador, because I know some things are coming. But what are some rollout and announcements and future plans that you would like to maybe talk about today and make some announcements?
Ooh, I'd tell you, but then, I'd have to, as the saying goes, I'd have to kill you. So, because it's all kind of secret at the moment. We do have.
What are the ones that have been just released this year? Because I know that Land ID is a big partnership. To me,
Land
I
ID,
think.
I was talking to them just this morning. Actually, they pretty quickly, all the members' listings will be on the Land ID site. They're working. It's technical, right? So there's people smarter than me figuring out how to do that. We added recently added acre value. Landgate just went live. Camo Ag is coming on board pretty soon. We've got Land Search, Crexy, Wall Street Journal, the Dow Jones site. All of those sites and more that I can't think of off the top of my head at the moment, but it's all on the website. All those sites are included in your membership, right? So it's a cup of coffee a day, and you get all of those, plus the LANDBROKER CoOp site, plus access to all the back end data. Because once you're a member, you can go into the back end of this site. You can search comps, you can graph things out, you can connect with other people through texts, a texting system that's built in. You can get alerts when properties come to the market. There's all of those cool things that are incorporated onto the back end of the site, which the members have access to as well. We do regular sort of webinars for people who are interested and want to understand the back end. You can sign up for those and be toured around the site if you're a broker or an agent, and that will give you a whole lot more insight into all the tools on the back end that help brokers be better at what they do. It's important technology. I think the biggest thing that the co-ops achieved, though, in the last couple of years is, even though we still see price increases, I assure you those price increases would have been much steeper if we didn't exist. So we kind of put a check on, because we're becoming a very serious alternative to other sites now, and that's really key. So part of it is doing what's smart for your business. Part of it is doing what's smart for the industry, and helping us sort of build a walled garden around the industry a little bit. That doesn't mean no access for people who want to be in the space at all. It just means when they come into the space, they will start to know what they don't know. We will, that will be a lot more obvious that, wow, I didn't realize I was going to have to worry about pipeline easements. So an education process, which I think is really important.
Now, if I am going to the website, landbrokermls.com, what is the reach? If I'm searching for property, where do you cover?
Well, every state in the union, for sure. I mean, but we now just opened up the international section as well. So you can search properties in multiple countries. That is really more because this is an extremely vibrant market, right? So there are other countries that really want to expose their properties within the US. And that makes sense. I mean, it's a two-way street. Our primary interest is the US market. Obviously, that's 99% of what we're focused on. And working with brokers to just find ways to improve it all the time. And to improve access all the time. That's a big part of what we have going on.
And I tell sellers, you never know where your buyer's coming from. I mean, there's people that are from all over the world, foreign or not, that we deal with. Sure. millionaires, billionaires, and corporations, buy land and buy ranches. And sometimes it's just better for their portfolio to buy it within an LLC. Or an S corp, things of that nature. So I'm glad. I'm really excited. I see a great future in the global expansion of LANDBROKER MLS. There's a lot of amazing sporting properties in Europe and just in overseas in general. Like I said, my bread and butter is hunting. So that traveling and those properties, it just being able to access that. And, it's not uncommon for me to find somebody that wants to buy a sporting property and write it off as entertainment, or really get into that outfitting business, like you've seen at Dallas Safari Club and Safari Club International. It's a huge sector if you're in those worlds.
Yeah, well, and if you've got to buy it in Africa, for example, there's a lot of big sporting properties there. Well, many of those are owned by wealthy Americans and Europeans, but there's a lot of Americans. And if you've got a website and you've got access to those listings, and your client's got an interest, it allows you to connect with people with those listings and get a referral fee on something that happens in a different country. And that happened. I mean, I have hard examples of that actually happening in the not so distant past, in the last number of weeks, in fact. So I think that it just broadens the opportunity for everybody to have those listings on the site. They're not going to be in the general search. They're going to be in a special section, which we're currently improving and finding new ways to make that more streamlined. But yeah, why not? Why not have those listings? Nobody does. We're literally the only national site that has international listings, but this world gets smaller every day. And if there's some guy in Belgium that wants to move to Texas, and for business, for work, and maybe it's for 2 or 3 years, they want to have a place in the hill country, this is how they're going to find it. So that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Well, I urge everyone, whether you're looking for land and eventually going to be in the land market, or you're an agent, farm and ranch agent, and you haven't checked out LANDBROKER CoOp and then LANDBROKERMLS.com, please give it a look. There's a ton of information on all their benefits there. And then also Deetra, who is the associate that helps the agents, her information's on there. So Deetra's amazing. I urge you to reach out. So just lastly, I wanted to ask you, it being 2024 and here in America, we're there's a lot going on. We have an election year. What do you see for the future of the land industry? Not just in the United States, but you've been around the block. You've seen some changes.
I don't think the election will make any difference to the land industry. I think a wise man said a long time ago, they're not making any more of it. I think that the conservation easement side of things is keeping properties big. That's in some ways that's good. In other ways, it kind of restricts business a little bit, you might argue. And I think they are getting stronger and stronger. I only see good things ahead. I mean, it's hard to imagine a scenario where land is not going to be popular, where that's not going to continue to be the dream for a lot of people. It's not for everybody, but for a lot of people. And of course, the market's going to, go up and down a little bit, and there's cycles, and those things affect everything. And we should expect at some point we might see a little dip, but I thought that was already going to happen. I think we've blown right by that dip, and we're still strong. So for whatever reason, whether it be still the COVID effect or the Yellowstone effect, or just because people just want to feel they're going back to their roots a little bit more. I see big things. We have a lot of insurance companies and institutional investors contacting and, adding to portfolios that used to just be purely financial. They want to diversify. They want some agricultural in there. They see the tax benefits of that, which they enjoy. So it's very much becoming more mainstream. The land, getting into land is more accessible and more mainstream, and that has to be good for business. In my opinion.
Absolutely. You know what? I love what you said. As long as there's another episode of Yellowstone, we're still going to have a good market.
I think so. Well, it may take just a little more than just the TV show, but no, you know, that will cool off at some point. But there's enough people who've had the opportunity to enjoy it, to enjoy what it feels like to be rural, that won't get it out of their system. So I think what we've done is we've just dropped a whole chunk of people into the space that want to stay in the space. And that's why I think we're in good shape moving forward.
Yeah, once you get the bug, man, once you go out to the ranch and you can see all the stars, it'll
Yep.
definitely change you. David,
Yep.
thank you so much. We're so excited about the future. We appreciate your insight and you sharing your knowledge today. We look forward to having you back, as well as probably doing a one-on-one with Deetra, maybe to dive into
Great.
the model a little more. But thank you so much, sir, for your time. And
That was
I'm very
great. I had a
excited.
great time. I hope it was useful. I certainly enjoyed myself. And if anyone has questions, they know how to get hold of us, and we welcome the comments.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, David. You have a great day.
Thanks. Bye bye.